How much do looks really matter? In society, whether we like it or not, how we look affects how we're treated, and even what opportunities we might have in life. A one-time New York prison commissioner, Henry Solomon, once stated that, quote, physical defects might conduce to crime, because a man with a poor physical appearance would have an easier time stealing $1 than getting hired to earn one, so he thought. Well, that outlook wasn't new then, and it hasn't really gone away. In Zara Stone's amazing book, Killer Looks, she writes that, quote, people have instinctively understood the societal benefits of conventional beauty as a kind of social currency. It's literally like money in the bank. Beauty privilege is real, she writes, and it's real uncomfortable. By the early 1980s, cosmetic surgery was firmly established as a path to economic success. Looks were so important that a new branch of therapy was created, cosmetic behavior therapy. If that sounds strange, just wait. Imagine a program that offered cosmetic changes to inmates as a means of lowering the crime rate, that instead of teaching us to lose our bias about looks, society was pretty willing to give into it. Do looks really affect crime rates? More likely, appearance bias instead creates a situation where a person is both less likely to have opportunities and more likely to be accused or arrested for a crime.
Hello. You guys realize that this book is all up my street as a result of all of these topics, right? I'm so excited about this one, and it was so much fun to listen to. I listened to it while I was running on the treadmill. Didn't even fall off the treadmill this time, but it was very, very cool. I actually went over my 2-mile limit, which is, kind of a thing because I hate running with the fire of 10,000 suns. We have a lot of people here tonight. I'm so excited. But I just want to give a couple of shout out. We got Randy Trent, Lorelei Peterson, Jennifer Pierce is here, and Susan. Susan is apparently still without power because of Hurricane Beryl. Bless your heart. Rebecca Gibson, and we are here for you tonight. And I know I'm excited. I know Dave is excited because we have a pretty awesome show pulled up for you tonight.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, we do. I had an idea for a sketch. It was going to be a Kenobi sketch. I don't know how many people noticed in the videos that they docked his tail when he was a puppy. He's got a little nub of a tail. But I felt like it'd be kind of mean and cruel to like rubber band things on the Kenobi's tail and stuff. So I had an idea, but I wasn't going to torture my dogs for it.
I kind of like it, though. I do. Yeah. And actually, I had to augment the little clay Kenobi because the first time I did it, I sort of forgot his tail was stopped. And I gave him a whole tail and then I had to take it off again.
Oh, God. I wonder what life would have been like for him if he had a full tail.
He might have had a very different self-experience. It's possible.
Yeah, they wouldn't have sent him away to Rikers for all those years.
They wouldn't have sent him, right? So we're all really excited to bring tonight to you Zara Stone, who's our author.
Hi.
Welcome, Zara. We brought you with an ink explosion. Ink explosion being a very important part of the show.
Absolutely.
Arrive here via squid. Ryan says he's in for Sadie. She had a thing to do, but sends her greetings. I saw Jennifer Pierce said she listened to the book. I was listening to it too. Davey, did you read it or listen to it? Listen to it. Okay. It was really a good audiobook. I really enjoyed it. And Zara, you told me earlier, you were saying about all the footnotes, and that she had to read all the footnotes for you too.
Yeah, that seems a very painful thing to do. There were a lot of footnotes.
I thought it was fantastic. The way this show works, if you're new to us tonight, is you'll want to choose the live comment feed. Live comment feed shows you everybody here, and as you can see, we put up things like "Hey Rebecca" from Jennifer Peer, or "Holy cow, Susan," Ryan, who's telling us that he's in for Sadie, who had something to do. When you enter your comments, we can see them, and then we add them to the screen. If you're on our podcast instead, I will do my best to read the comments out loud so that you don't miss anything. There is a bit of a delay. So as you have questions that you want to ask Zara, you do need to get them in a little bit early, and then I will go back and check for them in a few minutes. So while we're waiting for all of that fun stuff to happen, I have a question that we kind of start with everybody, which is, how did you come upon this topic? Like, what made you decide to write about this?
So I'm a journalist, and I was actually researching plastic surgery on pets, and
Wow.
which was an interesting rabbit hole to go down. And turns out in the French Revolution, actually, when a lot of people were hating on the aristocrats, they had these very specific breeds of dogs. So they were actually performing kind of, snubbing their noses and kind of chopping their tails so their pets could go run free, because a lot of the peasants were going and trying to kill the aristocrats and their pets.
So my sketch idea for Kenobi's tail was not that far off.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I was like, that is actually quite related. So as I was going down that, interesting rabbit hole, and, was talking about like, letting the animals go free, it kind of brought me into some of the history parts where I first started learning about prison plastic surgery. And I was so surprised to hear about it. Initially, I was like, oh, they had just done experiments on people who were incarcerated, because America is, generally traditionally known for being nice to incarcerees. But the more I kind of explored it, the more I found that actually this was all designed as a recidivism treatment. And even wilder, it worked. And then I just got a little bit obsessed.
Sorry, we lost Brandy for a second there.
Hi.
Perfect.
I was shocked by the whole pet thing that I think my computer had like to just take a moment. Sorry, I'm back.
Okay, we're good.
We're good.
That wasn't a directorial choice, Brandy. Yeah, we legitimately lost Brandy there for a second.
Sorry about that. But yeah, pet plastic surgery is fascinating. Rebecca Gibson says, so fascinated by this one because of that persistent myth of rib removal, which was this. I'm kind of. She has a lot to say about that. Do you want to comment on ribs?
Sure. I mean, so rib removal is, I think the myth is that, some of the very skinny models will get ribs removed in order to kind of be more concave. It's a pretty rare surgery, but I would say there's a couple of places in Eastern Europe that you can get it done. Generally, not all of the ribs, more just, I don't know my ribs off by heart, but not some of them.
So is it the Adam rib, right? Like you take out the one for Adam and the one for Eve, and then you're set.
Yeah, absolutely. Delicious.
It's fascinating because Rebecca Gibson, I should say, she's one of our past authors, and she writes a lot about corsets and corsetry, which of course is another means of kind of changing your shape without necessarily surgery. What I found so first of all, I have to say, starting with the story of the little boy who doesn't have a nose was so like, this is why I ended up running extra miles. I was like, I needed to find out what happened to the little boy because it is a really moving story. And what I thought was fascinating was that you never really, you work hard not to villainize the parents. And because I think it would be really easy to write this story in such a way where we're all like hating on the parents. But I felt like you really made it clear that like these folks already, the odds are so stacked against them already, and they're trying to make it in this new country, and there's already all the stigma. And so that was really, I thought, very meaningful at the front part of the book, where you had a lovely balanced way of approaching some of these things, which can be difficult to approach, and
Mhm.
like morally sticky.
Yeah, I mean, I think today there's so much polarization, right? Like this is good or this is bad. And I think everything is a lot more blurry than that.
Mhm.
I think most parents, they do want to do well by their kids. And for them, the parents kind of leading the child was just them feeling very helpless.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to, it was hard to read, but also like I felt like I'm a writer, so I know how hard it is to deal with those situations. Like I wrote a book where I had to talk about animal experimentation and all of that. Whenever you're doing that, it's like this kind
Mm.
of, you're trying to create this balance where you're showing that there's no such thing as pure villains or pure heroes. It's this complicated. You did a wonderful job at that, and I was very impressed, frankly.
Thank you.
So yeah, it was really good. So while people are putting in some comments, I know we're going to talk a little bit about eugenics and phrenology and Lombroso and all these other things. We're going to jump into our announcements first. So let's do that. We'll get those out of the way because we have to talk about this drink, which we're getting to. So first of all, if again you are joining us for the first time, we're kind of everywhere. This show that you're watching tonight, it is live at the moment, but it will be available on YouTube in perpetuity, right? Well, we hope. And so you can share it with your friends, you can watch it again, and you can subscribe. Please subscribe to our YouTube. Please subscribe to our blog as well, or not our blog, our podcast as well, which Davey runs. Next up, we talk about our, what do we do next, Davey? Oh yeah, the newsletter. Most of you got here tonight because I put the link to our shows in the newsletter. If you haven't found us in that way, please do join the newsletter. It's how I communicate lots of other fun stuff, including like when we have sales for memberships and all other kinds of fun swag, etc. So please make sure you sign up. It's just a lot of fun. And you sometimes get to know things a little bit before everyone else, like what's going to be happening next year, which I'm working on right now. Patreons and VIPs. Okay. Most of our shows are free. And that's because I believe in free, frankly. And I think this is all about sharing books and having a lot of fun. But it is hard to keep the lights on. So one of the ways that we do that is we have folks join us as Patreons or as annual subscribers. And then you get VIP shows like our next show, which is Mary Roach interviewing Daniel Kraus for Whale Fall. I also just want to pop up, thank you, Jennifer. We're also on Goodreads. So you can see all the books we have read in the past, what's coming up, and other tidbits. And we're on oh dear, is it bookclubs.org? Is that what it is? Shoot. Amanda, I don't see Amanda on here, so she can't correct me. You can find it on our website. And that's nice too, because it reminds you when the club is meeting. And so you've got that little extra reminder as well. So Patreon, if you want to see Mary Roach as our next show, and Daniel Kraus, who's worked with Del Toro on Shape of Water, etc., and now is writing about being swallowed by a whale because that's what you do, apparently, if you work with Del Toro. Next, cocktail. Okay, this is the name. Do you love the name? The Lombroso can suck a dried peach pit. I'm sorry, that's fantastic. Lombroso, which again, we realized he was coming from a certain place and time, but was a very problematic individual. This is the name of the cocktail that we chose. The runner-up was Social Capital. So that was the runner-up.
Mm.
Sparkling wine, peeled peach that's crushed, ginger, cardamom, honey, ice. It's slushy. It's delicious. In the lovely photo created by Kat, she actually creates a kind of sand out of the cardamom and sugar, and she's really quite something with the photographs of these as well.
Fun story from adventures of being a dad of a 2-year-old. They do weird things, and he's obsessed with the pit of fruit now. Like he
Really?
wants the core. He doesn't want to eat slices. He wants the core, and he was just sucking. Like I sucked a nectarine pit clean yesterday. Yeah.
That's so funny,
That was
but
a
it kind
peach.
of
That
makes
was a
sense. I
peach.
mean, there is a lot of flavor in there. Rebecca says that name is awesome. I can't have this one as I'm allergic to peaches, so I'm sipping on tequila. And I apologize. It was originally nectarines, but I sort of pushed for peaches. So you could always substitute if you can with another stone fruit. I had 2 whiskeys before the show, so I had to watch having another one. YouTube channel we've already mentioned. Please do subscribe. It's awesome. A lot of fun. All of our old shows are there. Weirdly, if you want to see all the shows, you have to choose live instead of video. I've tried to change it a million times. They won't let me. I don't know why.
And finally, our podcast feed. That's right. If you're not subscribed to the podcast feed, please check it out because you get a bonus podcast. We do the Peculiar Movie Club. Or 2, that's right. We do the Peculiar Movie Club podcast. Me and my co-host for that, Darren. We take a theme. We try to theme it around a book from that month. So our July movie is going to be themed around whale fall. And I don't think there's any other whale movie we could possibly do. We got to do Moby Dick.
You have to.
Somehow I never read Moby Dick. It missed me all throughout my education. I know it never hit me all those years of English classes, and I never got to find Moby Dick. So
it's my favorite book.
Maybe I have to power through the audiobook too. If I could finish Whale Fall.
Wow, yeah.
But we're going back to 1956 version with Gregory Peck. Which is available on Tubi and I think the Roku channel too to stream for free. Okay. I'm sure it has ad breaks or whatever, but we always try to find one that's at least streaming to help everybody out.
Yeah.
So watch Moby Dick, and then we'll try for July 18th, but me and Darren have not hit a release date, I think, yet this year. So sometime in July, but we'll try for July 18th.
Sometimes happening. It's totally fine. No, I love Moby Dick. When people ask me, which for some reason, I don't know if you get this too, Zara, where they always ask you, like, if you were stranded on a deserted island, what book would you choose? That's like a regular author question I get. Anyway, I always tell them it's Moby Dick.
Or something, yeah.
I have not got that, but I know what I would say.
What would you take?
I would take Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham.
Very nice. Very nice.
Well,
I would take Moby Dick just because it's at least 4 books in one. So I feel like I'm kind of like doubling up, sort of tripling up, quadrupling up. Don't know what the math word is for that. So those are our announcements.
I was going to ask if I was thinking about what movies we could do for your book. Is there a great plastic surgery movie? I mean, prison movies. Yeah. There's some great prison movies, but
I mean, Death Becomes Her. I feel like to be adjacent.
I love that movie so much. Sorry, did I get really excited? I'm sorry.
I mean, there's no prison in it, but they're imprisoned in their own bodies, and it's more watchable than some of the other kind of black and white ones.
Right, that's true. Rebecca Gibson says House of Leaves, which I never managed to read that book. I took a class in which we were supposed to read it, but I didn't do it. It happens sometimes. So it's my Moby Dick. It's my Moby Dick. That's I somehow missed it. That's funny. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there any other? I mean, there's some pretty horrific tales of plastic surgery, like the surgeons who operated on each other. Do you remember that? Oh, Face Off. There you go.
Oh, Face Off. And it is a prison movie. There's a prison escape in there. Wow.
There is. There
Good
is.
job,
oh,
Rebecca.
Look, Randy said it too.
Yeah.
Good See thinking. The peculiars. This is why you can call on them during the quiz. They know shit.
But is Gregory Peck in it?
Possibly not. Oh wait, there's a great plastic surgery movie, Post Prison Escape with Humphrey Bogart. What? I did not know that. That's even almost like we're getting close to the right time period. So that's how you came across this via pet plastic surgery. This is not the answer that I expected, I have to say. But I asked you earlier. Oh wait, Shitty Justice. Now you know about it too. No, so we've got Dopes That Count is what it's called. Okay, you guys are gonna have to. Jennifer L says, all of you with their grown-up books, and I walk around with the giraffe, the Pelly, and me. What's that? You might have to fill us in, Jennifer. Back to though the one of the things I really enjoyed about the way the book was constructed is that you did really wrap it around stories, and I felt like we got to know the surgeon really well. And so I wonder, like, how do you feel? Another book that we did last year was Facemaker by Lindsay Fitzharris, and that was wrapped around a surgeon as well, also plastic surgery. I'm assuming you're familiar with it. And I just think that there's a really lovely way in which you make us feel like we're looking through the eyes of the surgeon. Did you feel like you came to know him really well?
I mean, I did. I feel like I like know more about him than even his own children. And I say this having spoken to his children who were like, oh, wow, this happened. I was like, yes, I found one of his old diaries in an archive. And they're like, can you send it? And it's like, sure. So
Wow.
I think it's just you go down this rabbit hole and then you start reading, I don't know, like the way somebody grows up is kind of has so much impact on everything they do. And there were all these like little nuggets. Like I could see old school reports of his, could see like applications he made when he was trying to get into college. It just,
Hmm.
yeah, it felt like I had like developed this like, yeah, this weird like understanding of someone I've never met.
No, I agree. I mean, I wrote about Dr. White. And there again, like I was working with his children and I managed to surprise all of them with some of the things that, but you, of course, you see your father in a different way than you see like a research subject, I guess. Um, but yeah, because I really did feel like there was a sense that we as readers got to know him really well. And so I figured you must have felt like kind of an affinity, you know, you sort of understood where he was coming from.
Yeah, I just really liked the way that he, a lot of people might go to prison and might be like, oh, well, maybe I'll offer plastic surgery. But he was really coming from this place of like wanting people to help integrate and from
Yeah.
like understanding the otherness that so many people in prison felt.
Well, I think we have to address the elephant in the room. And first of all, I'm gonna get on all of you. You guys send me your questions. I'm not that I'm not fascinated by Face Off because I am, but send me your questions. One of the things we have to talk about, I think, is what does it mean to have beauty bias? Because on one hand, I find myself saying, "Well, Lombroso was so wrong. Like, how dare he think that someone's, the way they looked necessarily means something about them?" On the other hand, if the way you look keeps you from being treated like a full human being in society, that's going to have effects and impacts. And so it's interesting I'm on one hand reading your book and listening to their arguments for why plastic surgery was the right way to go. And I'm thinking that's so wrong. And at the same time, part of you goes, but I can kind of see the point. I mean, it's a tricky situation.
I mean, it really is. And I think like one of the things I really think about is like, yes, it would be much better if everybody could work on their biases, could stop, making instant judgments about how people look. But to get to this place, and like a bunch of psychologists and
Yeah.
sociologists have said it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of self work, and to think that like, people who have a lot of privilege haven't managed to do this, that somehow we could expect people who are incarcerated to suddenly solve the beauty bias
Mhm.
problem is just baffling to me.
Yeah. Well, there was a research study, and some of you I know do teach, so jump in if I get this wrong, but I believe there was a research study saying that they found that students automatically listened to and believed instructors that they found attractive, whereas they required instructors they didn't find attractive to kind of like work a lot harder to convince them of something.
Oh, there is just it's so prevalent everywhere. Like the more you look into it, the scarier it gets. Like, when you're a child in school, like, more conventionally
Mhm.
attractive students, they get better grades. When they act out, they're called like playful rather than, being
Right.
delinquent. It's a pervasive bias. Like it goes all the way up to college. In work, it can affect promotions. And there is a little bit that goes the other way. If you're too beautiful, you can get people being slightly biased against you. Like women might not want to be your friends, guys might just see you. But in general, like most of it falls the other way rather than the problems of it too attractive.
Oh, Darwin realized that
Oh,
we were having a show, so he had to come and say hi.
so cute.
He's kind of our unofficial mascot. And then Darwin adopted another cat. So we have two now because Darwin adopted Wallace. So Charles Darwin and Alfred Wallace. Say hi. Hi. He doesn't normally come up when we have a show, but he's just like, hey, what's going on in there? Um, well, and Rebecca Gibson just added to that saying, there's a historic connection between grotesque, disability, monstrosity, and this kind of idea of wisdom of the fool. So there's it's very interesting. Monstrosity. We had Riva Lair on our show for the book Gollum Girl, and she talks about being treated like a golem. Right? She has a sort of spine problem, and how the word monster gets tossed around still today in ways that we wouldn't normally. We think we've moved beyond these things, but we really haven't.
I know. I mean, people are making attempts, right? Like, we have, the traditional kind of Disney villains, Disney princesses. Like, we're seeing more diversity in bodies and appearance. And I know the British Film Institute, a couple of years ago, they said that they were not going to fund any more movies, which, portrayed stereotype villains. So, like, no more people with alopecia just kind of being put in a certain role. So
Right.
these are slow cultural shifts. Like, it helps, but nothing is like, okay, instantly, yeah, no,
Yeah.
no appearance science anymore.
Well, and I mean, I can also just add that there's some of this speaks to the issue around trans rights too, because you have this idea of passing, which is a similar kind of situation about looks and who is overlooked and who is targeted. And so, looks really they matter in ways that we don't always expect. Jennifer Pierce says the personal, oops, I just kicked my computer. Sorry. The personal stories you included were so compelling. Were there any you wish you could have included, but that got cut?
That's a really good question. I do remember, because you have a limited amount of space in a book. I feel there are actually a lot about people who were incarcerated in Texas, where I had some really interesting stories. I mean, not always, I'm not trying to make, everything fit a nonfiction narrative. I'm not like, oh, this
Sure.
guy, he reoffended, I won't keep him in. Because I think it's important to show all the different facets of a plastic
Mhm.
surgery. But there was this one guy in Texas, and he had like this facelift, and he had a bunch of different things while he was in prison. And he also had, was convicted as basically a pimp and had a horrible history of like abusing women. And then I think when he left, he went out and this kind of continued. And that was
Yeah.
very disturbing to me. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't necessarily think him looking more attractive enabled that. It just was showing that, you know, changing appearance doesn't necessarily change all that much.
Right. Right. I mean, you tell the very compelling story of the gentleman who is bullied and then kind of reacts to the bullying and commits a crime as a result and then becomes a model prisoner. And so, there's these stories where you think, okay, here's somebody who was pushed to their breaking point, but that's not every story. And I just appreciated the balance of the book, because I do think you weren't trying to prove one thing or another necessarily. I don't feel like I left the book with a prescription. It was more like you were asked to think deeply about some issues that are tangled and difficult. Even now, I mean, and our concepts of beauty are still largely white and Western and cishet, and such that I was a friend of mine who wrote Bombay Time, a book. She wrote this book called Bombay Time, Thridi Amrigar, and she mentions in the story how Parsis in India were treated better than regular Indian people because their skin was lighter. And so therefore, like, even the concept of like shade of skin gets wrapped in
Mhm.
to what we consider beauty and not beauty. And that trickles all the way into like Snow White. That's literally her name. Her name is Snow White. So you absorb it in culture and you don't even know that you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean and I mean I think with the Indian thing, I know I think it was Google who has a bunch of lawsuits about caste bias, about people from different sects discriminating on someone from a lower sect. And I mean it's still kind of getting tangled and figured out, but I think the shift is that people are willing to talk about it now and to
Yeah.
like stand up and say like I don't want this to happen. Where I think there used to be a lot more shame
Mhm.
associated with it.
Well, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Carly Findley. So we had Alice Wong on here before for disability rights, and she's a big figure in disability rights. She actually has a tracheotomy and speaks through a machine now. But Carly Findley has ichthyosis, which is a skin condition where you don't have a moisture barrier, so the skin cracks. It sometimes cracks in like a diamond pattern. It looks like you have scales, or her face is bright red all the time. She has to wear like kind of a Vaseline emollient. And she talks all the time about the way people will react instead of reacting in an honest way. She's like, I'm not offended if someone's like, hey, what's going on here? But that
Mhm.
they will just automatically be like, stay away from that ugly, monstrous woman. Um, just and she's written extensively about the kinds of words that have been used against her. And I noticed Rebecca Gibson was saying, in school, before I grew into my features, I was called every single type of ugly you could possibly think of. me as well. I was sort of dark haired and dark skinned in a school where everyone was blonde, and it's just kind of, but these are just differences. Like it's interesting how we turn difference into ugliness and sameness into beauty.
Yeah, because diversity is what makes everyone so exciting, and is why we have so many of the inventions we have. But it's also like I wish people didn't separate people into the other. Like it's a problem. Like we don't. It would be fantastic to be accepting, but there's also still some of this is also bundled up with attraction, and that's like another murky area I didn't really get into in the book, where I've heard kind of people discussing how if you're attracted to one specific type of people, that can be racism or it can be lookism or a bunch of different things, and how we navigate that is really challenging.
Yeah, no, I see that. Well, and the other thing too is, so that's the other side of it, right? Because we say normative usually gets the beauty bias, but there's also this exoticism, Orientalism kind of almost, where someone who looks different is considered more beautiful than everyone else in the room. And it's just really tricky about how that actually works. It's like, oh, she's exotic. It's not the compliment it sounds like it is. It's not a compliment, but yet there's a way in which you're still othering them, but you're othering them as though it's a compliment.
Like it's a more socially acceptable way of saying you're different.
Yeah. But I'm not sure I'm not sure it's any less damaging than saying you're ugly, honestly, because you're still setting them apart and kind of pushing them away from everyone else.
I mean, terminology does matter.
True.
I mean, I think it's still separating people, but at the same time, like the ugly word or calling somebody fat, those kind of hurt more than calling somebody curvy at the same time.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. That's really interesting. Well, shoot, it is 7:30. We're already halfway through our show, which means it's time to have a little musical interlude.
Ooh.
When we get back, I want to talk more about the writing process, because I know that you're also a journalist and that you do short form writing, you do other kinds of writing, and so we'll get back and talk a little bit about that. We'll get to any other questions that people put in during our music, but first, a little bit of song. Davey, can you bring us some song?
Oh, hello, Peculiars.
It's us, Charming Disaster.
And we've got a little song for you. It's called Murderer.
1, 2, 3. Like gin beneath the juniper, scraping sound, shovel in the muddy ground. I hope you thought to bring a change of shoes.
Listen, dear, we have a situation here. Someone's picking up what we put down. Oh my word, I got it from a little bird. It might be better if you're not around.
Murderer, what you gonna do? I'm a murderer too. Murderer, say it 'cause it's true. You're a murderer too. Your pouty lip, chewing on a fingertip, a troubled look across your face. Narrow squint, did we wipe the fingerprints? How can we be sure that we left no trace? Murderer, what you gonna do? I'm a murderer too. Murderer, say it 'cause it's true. You're a murderer too.
My dear, there is no turning back. Do you recall the moment when we lost it all? A clenched fist going slack.
Murderer, what you gonna do? I'm a murderer too. Murderer, say it 'cause it's true. You're a murderer too.
You can find that song on our album Time Ghost, available on vinyl or CD through our new Kickstarter. Check it out.
Before it's too late.
A little bit of Charming Disaster for us this evening. They're our house band and friends of ours. Isn't that fun?
That's fantastic.
So I tell them what shows we have ahead, and they choose the songs that they go. They're like, "Oh, we think Murderer needs to go here." It was appropriate, I think. Yeah. What Susan said, watching Fargo, the murderers are crazy. We did get a couple of questions pop in during the song. One of them, whoops. Uh-oh. How do I get back to star, Davey? Oh, there we go. Lorelei Peterson. Lorelei Peterson was saying another way in which like beauty gets like you get you're pretty for a fill in the blank. You're pretty for black girl, poor girl, whatever. Like there's all of these different kind of ways in which it's not just about being pretty, is it? It's kind of like you have to be pretty within a range that works, which I guess was the point that the doctors were making, that somehow these guys fell outside. By the way, was it much more common to perform the surgeries on men than women? It seemed that way just from the...
So much more. I would say something like 85% of the surgeries were on men.
Which is so interesting because Lombroso was kind of like super focused on women as like the women criminal and as prostitutes as the women criminal, but it doesn't sound like they really targeted them at all for this plastic surgery.
No, I mean, Lombroso had his, own personal issues. But yeah, women were not really, I mean, there's a couple of reasons, right? So like for one, there are a lot more men in prison. So just volume wise, they were a larger population. And then we also had the inherent sexism that, men and white men who got the majority of the surgeries, they really just, they should get these privileges above the women because, they'll be the ones going into the workforce, or even they're just considered more deserving. Like women's prisons, they have, even today, they have like 20% the amount of education that the men's prisons have.
Yeah, it's sad. So sad. We haven't gotten, there's so much being a historian. One of the sad things about being a historian is that you spend a lot of your time going, we haven't actually changed very much. We haven't moved very far. Like that's the most distressing thing about being a historian is that you look at the past expecting it to be really different and it's not. You're like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my research, I kept coming across stuff that was horrifying and being like, well, I guess I kind of see, some of the things as well, like in everyday life now.
I was going to ask about modern times because you get pretty close to modern times at the end of the book there. Have you been paying attention to the numbers with what's been going on with pardoning, the drug pardons that are going on? I don't even know if they've been passed into law or not with the stuff that the current administration is doing.
I mean, we have a lot of people who kind of got early released during the pandemic, and that was like a big shift in terms of the prison population. And I think there was this hope that we were kind of going to see this rise, but actually it kind of basically went backwards a little bit. Like prisons are still not as full as they used to be, but we're definitely seeing a shift towards more incarceration than kind of funneling into rehabilitation, partly because there are basically like not very good rehabilitation options.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, you're going to have a privileging of certain kinds of people over others who get to have those options, it's really funny to think about how just the hierarchies of how we think about prisoners. I mean, even as I was reading the book, I'm not intentionally doing it, but mentally I'm kind of going, oh, they belong over here. Like, oh, he was bullied. Like you kind of start shifting them around and then thinking, oh, I'm doing the thing. We're so unintentionally judgmental about these things.
Yeah, and I mean, it's easy to be like, okay, well, these people were in prison for this reason, or they had this childhood, or whatever. And sure, everyone's past impacts their life, but it doesn't mean everyone goes around, violating the law. But equally, sometimes the law is stupid and shouldn't be followed.
Says my father, who grows marijuana. Still, and now it's legal, but like it wasn't. But like that didn't actually change his behavior. He's just like, oh, hey, I'm not a criminal now. I'm like, okay. But you're right. Like sometimes rules happen, and you wonder why we're focusing on them. What Rebecca Gibson just said from the chorus line, different is nice, but it sure isn't pretty. Pretty is what it's about. I never met anyone who was different who didn't figure that out. Ooh. I don't think I've seen that, but that's sort of upsetting and and true.
Was there a character, someone as you were doing the research, you were like, oh, I hope they make it. I hope they make it. Oh, they went to prison again.
I mean, I know there was kind of one person who kind of hooked up with a nurse while they were in the recovery room, and I remember just being like, oh, this seems like I mean, they were also getting in trouble on the wards because on the recovery room, I think this was in New York City, everybody was drinking, and while they were operating on the patients, a lot of them who were reformed drug addicts, they got given them, narcotics, so accidental relapse. But then, I really did enjoy the guy who like got on with his nurse and how they sort of like ran away, and I was just like, and I mean, he didn't pop up again, and I like searched pretty hard for him. So in my head, that's like a lovely, like little, like everything worked out story.
You're like, go.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I get that. I enjoyed the stories in the book a lot, and I felt like, again, I know I said this earlier, but you really do present them with a lot of humanity, and this book could have been written other ways. So I'm really, really pleased at the way it was written, and that you gave everybody such humanity and such respect, even when they were maybe not always deserving of it. What would you say is your feeling about, like, I know I just said I feel like we haven't gotten any better, but how do you feel about where we're at right now?
I think where it's a lot more positive in terms of ethics. So even though I do think many of these prison plastic surgery programs produced good results, I think the ethics of operating on somebody while incarcerated, where you don't really have any real consent, was
Right.
challenging. And even I do think potentially some people should be offered stuff when they get released. But I think the fact that consent has become such a big part of the way we think about incarcerees is really changing the dialogue.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I want to say too, I mean, we still have a problem with people saying you look a certain way. I mean, profiling, essentially. You look a certain way, therefore you must be a criminal. And this is particularly in terms of like race-related police aggression. I live in Cleveland. Tamir Rice is a story that we still talk about here, right? He was a kid who, because of his race, they chose to see as an adult and chose to see as a threat. And so I think, at least in terms of race, I'm not sure that we've really progressed very far about from thinking a certain look equals a certain thing. I wonder if we've done any better in terms of disability or facial difference.
I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, I think when you look at kind of beauty standards, right, and then this kind of overarching these kind of tools of oppression that like really reinforce like sexism, classism, ageism, like gender
Weight,
norms. Yeah,
weightism,
absolutely.
thinism.
Yeah, they like impact into so many different areas of our life, and generally a lot of them are really not legally protected. I mean, disability is, and I think ageism is as well. But with lookism, I think that word was created in like 1978 by the Washington Post, and I think it really encapsulates the idea of judging someone based purely on what they look like. It's really not protected. Like we have the Crown Act, which is this law to protect people with natural hair, and I think about 25 states have now adopted that, so that kind of helps with some discrimination. But even if it was in law, like okay, you can't like be biased against someone. How are you going to prove it? Are you going to be like, well, they didn't hire me because I wasn't pretty enough? Like it gets very nebulous and very personal, and appearance is already an uncomfortable enough topic to talk about. But I feel like that would be very challenging.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer Pierce, she said, I live in Minneapolis. In terms of race, I wish I could say we were doing better over time, but obviously the George Floyd situation, and it's interesting because I do think we see. I think when we look at pop culture, we've seen some differences. So, for instance, you see a lot more women characters in main roles. We see more gay characters. We see more disabled characters. I think pop culture, television shows I watch, movies I watch, you're starting to see a bit of a change. But pop culture and real culture aren't necessarily the same thing. Like I live in Cleveland, where there's still a lot of race-related crime and race-related police crime, like police doing things to people who don't deserve it. So yeah, it's I don't know how to measure it, to be honest. I don't know how to measure where we are. I think medicine has a lot more rules about what they can and can't do, but I'm not sure how that translates to the wider population.
Yeah, I mean, at least medicine now is, testing drugs on men and women. So that's a good start, just in terms of factoring more people in. But it is a really hard place to be. I mean, I think, we're trending upwards, at least in terms of people
Yeah.
trying to do stuff. But I also feel like we've seen this before, and it just takes like one instance, or, somebody loses a job and everything kind of swings back like even further.
Yeah. Two points. Susan Cotter was saying, it does seem to help if people who live in diverse populations, like you live amongst diverse populations where you interact with lots of different people, tends to help rather than if you live in a very encapsulated community. Judy asked a question. She said, what do you think about backlash to to the looks in places like Russia, where employment ads can specify attractiveness for women as job qualifications? That's open there, whereas here it's covert, and because it is still there. I actually had a friend apply for a job that was very clearly meant for a young, attractive woman, and he is a middle-aged man, and he knew he wasn't going to get it, even though he was qualified, because he was like, it's very clear they were looking for a very specific kind of thing. But yeah, what do you think about that? Because it's open versus not open, but it is still happening.
It is absolutely still happening. And yeah, I mean, like Russia might do that. I know in South Korea and Japan, you have your picture on your resume. Like just because it's more covert doesn't mean that people aren't going to judge you. I think to an extent, remote work actually helps equalize that a little bit.
That's true.
People couldn't necessarily tell how tall you were or what size you were or all these other kinds of markers that you make judgment calls on. So, then a bunch of people, like you've heard of kind of like, oh, you have like big Zoom energy when you meet someone in person.
Big Zoom energy.
Yeah, they're like taller or like shorter than you kind of expected them just from, only interacting through a screen.
You're right. So, that's funny. I never thought about that. I kind of like that. Do I have big Zoom energy, Davey? Hey, you guys, does Davey and I have big Zoom energy?
You have big everything energy. You are.
That's probably true. Yeah. That is a fascinating idea, because I do think working from home has changed a lot of the dynamics in all kinds of ways. Sorry, I'm not able to get comfortable because I threw my back out earlier this week. But, Susan Cotter says yes. Jennifer says yes. And props. I do have props. Absolutely. So apparently I have big Zoom energy. And Davey does too, though, because Davey also has a bunch of bobbleheads, which are props. I just think so. But then, Rebecca Gibson says, I don't think so, but then again, I've met you. So it is getting to the point in the show where it's time for you to take your quiz, of course. And for this, I hand this over to Davey, who is fully well and prepared to take you through your paces, but you have a lifeline. You can ask the peculiars for help. So Davey, do you have a quiz for us today?
I do have a quiz. There were a lot of choices along the way. At one point, I was going to do a quiz about the youngest public servants I could find, like 18-year-old mayors and things like that. But there was one random thing in the book that I was like, I have to look this up. And when I did, I went down a rabbit hole that I never expected to go down. So it was all because of the line about Circassian chicken. And I was like, what is Circassian chicken? So I looked it up, and I'm going to be honest, our high school education, once you get to 1700s, it's all American history, and we stop learning world history. Like it's bad. And I did not know about the Circassian people and the Circassian genocide and all the terrible things that have happened to them. So I decided to do a quiz about the Circassian people called Pass the Circassian Chicken.
Oh,
And I hope you'll the peculiars will help you with this. This one's probably gonna be a little challenging. And I hope everyone will give me leniency on my pronunciations here.
Oh, okay.
So the first question, the Circassian people are a Northwest Caucasian ethnic group and nation who, because of the Circassian genocide perpetrated by the Russian Empire, have been forced from their homelands and are now spread all over the world. Their flag consists of 12 stars and 3 arrows. What color is the flag?
Oh my.
Is it A, blue with white stars and arrows, B, green with gold stars and arrows, or C, white with red stars and arrows? And for all our podcast listeners, I do have a grayed out flag on the screen right now.
He does have a grayed out flag, and there are stars and arrows on it.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so this is a complete guess, but I'm going to go with this because it just feels like these are kind of a bit more majestic as a colorway. So I'm going to go with B for green and gold.
Green and gold. Okay.
I'll give the peculiars a second to answer. I'll tell you that the stars represent the 12 tribes.
Okay. Susan suggests blue.
The stars in an arch were the tribes that had an aristocratic government system with princes.
Okay.
And the 3 horizontal ones in a line are the democratic tribes.
Oh, so they had. Oh my. Okay.
Yeah, that's very specific.
Rebecca seconds B. I feel like I'm just going to go with C because I like the idea of a white with red stars and arrows. Like I would fly that flag.
The answer is, her guess was B. The answer is yes, green gold stars and arrows.
Hey, look at that. It is rather majestic. I have to say.
It has a good pop to it. A good pop.
It does. It does. I like it.
All right. Next question. Dancing ability is very important for social standing in Circassian communities.
Whoa, I'd be in trouble.
Especially with regards to marriage and establishing romantic relationships. The most famous dance involves dancing with this weapon. Is it A, the Circassian sword dance, B, the Circassian whip dance, or C, the Circassian axe dance?
I like these people a lot already. I just want to say this is amazing. I would like all the things.
Dances. Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. I mean,
I hope it's a whip dance. Can you imagine how dangerous that would be to be a bystander?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no to whip. I feel that's maybe like more of an American thing, or
sort of, yeah.
maybe not.
Maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. An axe or a sword seems easier to dance with, but now I'm imagining like the Russian people doing that like little.
Oh, the little short dance thing. Yeah, the like.
Yeah, I don't want to make the noise like lots of stuff, and which seems more axe-like, but
it does. I mean, I'm trying to think of like what you would.
These things are all kind of blended now. Like when I was doing the research on this, like no easy Google search. So they give you like Georgian things and Turkish things, and that. I mean, that area of the world has gone through quite a bit of change.
It has. I'm also thinking like if you were dancing. You know, you might want to put something in your belt, like an axe would be easier to kind of probably. I'm going to go with axe. I'm just going to go with axe. I think.
I did just get an email about going to a sword magic dance class, so I'll send that out. I think I'm going to go with. I don't know, just because of that. I think I'm going to go with the Circassian sword dance.
Sword dance. Okay.
Sword dance. All right.
I actually have seseveral axes, so that might be why I've been leaning.
The answer is yes, 2 for 2. A Circassian sword dance.
Hey.
It's kind of hard to see in the image because she is literally twirling those swords so fast that it's hard to. But she's holding 2 swords there in the image. And as a bonus, when we finish the quiz, I might be able to pull a video up on YouTube.
Yeah, you should.
Right. But first, the last question. During holidays, the Circassian, bringing it back to food, of course, because this is inspired by Circassian chicken. During holidays, the Circassian people traditionally eat haliva, which is blank stuffed with Circassian cheese or potato. And apparently Circassian cheese is a big thing. Is it A, pasta shell, a stuffed pasta shell? Is it B, fried triangle pastry? Or C, a flatbread, a stuffed flatbread, like a pita pocket or something?
I mean, now I'm really hungry because that all sounds really good. And
I haven't had dinner yet either myself. So like I'm sitting here going, pastry.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, in terms of what I would most want to eat, I think right now would be the pastry.
I was thinking the same thing, though. I love Lorelai's just like, ooh, cheese.
That is a picture of a traditional cut of Circassian cheese. Yes.
It looks it looks kind of like fuzzy and good. Are those plums in the background? I sort of
Yeah, some kind of, again, the
Pickled
fruit
eggs?
with a pit in it, maybe.
I don't know. I'm hungry too. All right, you're gonna go with pastry. I'm gonna go with flatbread, and we'll see what
All
happens
right, we'll
here.
see what happens.
right.
The
I've been
answer
wrong every
is
time.
yes, a fried triangle pastry. 3
Oh
for
my God.
3.
Look at
Great
you.
job.
That sounds
Yeah,
so
this does
good.
sound good. Yeah.
Almost like samosas. They look like
Yeah, with
samosas.
a little, a bunch
Yeah,
of
or an
Trader
empanada or
Joe's.
something. Yeah.
Mm.
All right,
I haven't
great
had
job.
dinner.
Unfortunately, the podcast people won't be able to see this, but
You
let
guys
me
need to look
see
it up.
if I
That's
can- yeah, that's your
all
challenge.
right. Sword dancing. Show.
Here we
Yeah.
go.
Ooh.
It's the music I expected.
This clip was first, but then the rest of it isn't this.
It's like a Ren fair.
I don't know what this was.
That looks like a Ren fair.
This is what
here we
I
go.
kept. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of fast. That's very Ninja Turtle-esque of her. Like I feel Leonardo vibes.
That's why it's hard to pull a still.
Yeah, no shit.
I like this one. Very modern.
Whoa.
Girl in a modern
The
park.
genuine sword dancing.
Yeah.
And that's like a marriage. That's how you get married. That's how you attract.
You gotta
a mate?
have the skills to show you know what you're doing.
What? On a horse? Like what?
All right, this is a 4-minute video, so I think we'll.
Okay, but
We'll
you know
call
what?
it
I gotta
there, but-
say, I kind of like this as courtship. It's kind of like, hey, future lover, don't piss me off.
Yeah. It's like, I'm a powerful woman, and
I'm a
I have
powerful woman.
swords.
Yeah, so you got a lot of yays for getting. I don't think we've had somebody get all of them wrong or all of them right in a
Yeah.
while. Actually, I got all of them wrong, and it's all women. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
That's why I didn't understand that clip at the beginning. I was like, why that clip at the beginning didn't fit with the rest of the clip?
Was that from the Ren Fair that you and I are planning to go to? Is that what that was? We're gonna go to the Ohio Cleveland Renaissance Fair because I'm
Gotta
gonna
get-
dress
Ren
up
Fair.
because of course.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Bring out
I
the
have to do
costume
something
book.
with all these corsets. Mark, we'll get Lady Paws in one too. He'll be really cute. He looks better in my shoes anyway. Well, you guys, believe it or not, we have come to the end of our show. I know it never seems like we've been here that long, but yet we've done all of these important things. Oh, hello. Now I've got another cat. I just had the charge of the light brigade just went under my chair. That was Wallace and Darwin in a loop. So anyway,
so in the end, do you think plastic surgery helped with recidivism?
Yes,
There we go.
I think there are problems.
Okay.
But yes.
yes. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. I was
There
also,
we go.
I mean, Lorelai, we assumed you would be dressing up Brandy. Well, duh. I mean, come on. Yeah, earthquake in Cleveland. Yes, that's what that was like. I don't know if you guys see they've been talking to each other the entire film, the entire show, and you can't hear them because my mic is directional. But there's just this whole like in the background going meow, 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 meow. Like they're just having a whole. I think they've read your book. They're having a really deep philosophical conversation about cats. They each had an ear tip, so they're talking about like, would we fix our ear tips if we could? And would that keep me from going back to a life of feral catness? It's hard to say. But yes, this was an amazing book. Thank you for joining us. Thank all of you for joining us once again. Don't miss out next time we're doing Mary Roach. You will need to join as a Patreon if you're not one already, but it's only $5. So again, thank you, Zara. Thank you, Davey. Thank everyone for being with us on a place where, if you're weird, yeah, you're family.
You got the blue bottle blues when you wake up in the night. Don't make a big mistake, 'cause you can never make it right. When you reach out for the vial, feel the ridges in the glass. It's a matter of survival, baby. Better watch your back. There is no antidote. There is no
no